Garret, I want to ask you, yours is energy and environment, and I will tell from all of you, he's probably one of the brightest individuals on these two subjects, from an ability of the knowledge of what's going on and not. And what's interesting to me, I was listening to the conference chair on the Democratic side, and he just said the other day, nobody in the Democratic conference has brought up one time the price of gasoline. And it doesn't matter who you are. As I travel the country, I just meet somebody for the first time, they bring up the price of gasoline. Why are we in this position that we are about energy 1 year after they took power? What is the backdrop to this? Because that is also a big driver of inflation.
It's a huge driver, and it does affect everyone. And as was noted earlier, I mean, this has a bigger impact on senior citizens and other folks that are on fixed income. One of the most perversive things, doesn't matter if you're a high school student, if you're a retiree, or anyone in between, you have to drive. So first, Kevin, to answer the question, this administration, when Biden was a candidate, he was out there talking about how we are going to ban fossil fuels. He flat out said it. The current Secretary of Interior that's responsible for producing energy in the United States came out and said she is absolutely opposed to fracking and production of energy on public lands. Look, to overly simplify what we're experiencing right now, it'd be like if you had a garden in your backyard and you grew tomatoes and cucumbers in your own yard. But you said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and go buy it from Jim and Jane who live in the next town over. I'm going to buy their tomatoes and cucumbers, only to find out later that they're using the proceeds from that to go commit arson and burn down churches all over the state. And you're effectively funding it. And so what's happened is by the same analogy here, by not producing our own energy here, and by giving funds to these regimes that are like Putin, that where we saw a 161% increase in crude oil importation under the Biden administration, by being dependent upon these regimes, now we've seen they're negotiating with Iran, with Venezuela, with Saudi Arabia. I mean, same outcome. They're pushing us in a direction, overly aggressively trying to force the market in a direction of wind and solar and other technologies, which, look, I like, but you can't overly force the market when the market's not ready, because all this does is play into the hands of China, which makes 90% of the solar panels today. I want to be very clear on this. This skyrocketing of prices started on day one of this administration. This was 100% self-imposed. This was absolutely forced or unforced errors that they've committed. And now every single American is paying the price. And it's resulting in less economic activity in the United States, fewer jobs in the United States. And it's a drop in income, because when you produce natural resources, it's one of the only ways to actually produce additional revenue. So our Treasury is experiencing less revenues because of these very policies.
Let me play devil's advocate. Let me say, okay, I'll take you for what you say. And I know the price is really high. So you say it's an emergency situation. But I care about the environment. So if I care so much about the environment, if I shut down production in the United States, is that better for the environment? And I'll pay higher pricing.
So something, and a bunch of reporters here, so fact check me all you want. None of you have ever reported this. So ask you a quick question. Who reduced emissions more, Trump or Biden? All right, I asked Michael Mann, who's supposed to be the top climate scientist in the nation, at a hearing the other day. He said Biden, just as most of you would probably answer. Here's the fact. Emissions went down 10.3% under President Trump, 10.3% over 4 years, an average of approximately 2.5% a year. Under President Biden, they went up 6.3% in his first year. All right? Emissions have gone up under President Biden. They went down under President Trump. Prices have gone up under President Biden. They were stable or went down under President Trump. Energy security has completely dissolved under President Biden, and it was much better under President Trump. To answer your question, look, the facts are very clear. Producing domestically, being dependent upon our own supplies, we have some of the most stringent environmental regulations, environmental policies, safety policies in the world, right here in the United States. So a comparison, if you take a cubic foot of gas and you deliver it to Europe, Russian gas is about 41% dirtier or greater emissions than U.S. gas. So the more that we supplant Vladimir Putin's gas, the better for the environment, the better for national security, the better for global peace and stability. So I can't say enough about how flawed these energy policies are. They're not based on science. They're not based on fact. Worse for the environment and worse for the American people's pocketbook.
So back in the other Congress, Waxman proposed putting these caps on emissions and others, and he had a goal of where to set. So that bill never passed, but he had these goals. Where does America look like today based upon where the Democrats want to take us?
It's a great point. And there's some awesome graphs and slides on this. So here's the thing. If you look at what Waxman Markey was trying to do, it charted a course of exactly where emissions were going to go without action, where they were going to go under their bill, and what was going to happen with energy prices, which they predicted energy prices were going to go up. In reality, what's happened is that by letting the markets do what they do, emissions have gone down beyond what Waxman Markey was going to require, and prices are prior to this administration, energy prices were a fraction of what they were projected to be. And another example of that, President Obama had something called the Clean Power Plan, reduce emissions by 30% off a 2005 baseline by 2030. President Trump came in and said, no, we're not doing this. By letting the markets do what they do, we actually exceeded the Obama goal, not in 2030, which obviously hasn't happened yet, but in 2019. We exceeded the goal that was set by the Obama administration by letting market do what it does, by letting innovators innovate, and by not having government come in and actually structure it. So you get, look, lesson learned. Let the markets do what they do, help to innovate, inspire innovation, and you get greater outcomes in terms of affordability, greater outcomes in terms of American economic activity and jobs, and greater performance or greater outcomes for the environment. Win, 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 win.
Okay, last question. The president was opposed to pipelines. The Democrats voted against pipelines. So in California, Gavin Newsom lowered California's production by 20%. That didn't mean we used less. We filled it somewhere else. So we had 89,000 barrels less a day in California we produced. So we filled that with 50,000 more from Russia. Now you're saying that's dirtier. We get the majority of our oil now from Ecuador. So we're still utilizing it. And the interesting part is people think that just goes into gas. That goes into your clothing, into your phones, into your ink of your print, into the asphalt. That's why, and then not just transportation costs, but it raises all costs. If we can't move it by a pipeline, but it's still going to come here, what would be the safest, sound way to transport it then? I mean, is he picking this over safety or environment?
National Research Council did an analysis, and actually, I apologize, Kevin, but I got to pick on your home state for just a minute. Look, look, you can look at all this stuff. You can look at evidence at what performs, and look at examples states have carried out policies and what works and what doesn't. State of California, eighth worst emissions growth in America, most dependent state on foreign energy, not just Ecuadorian oil. 50% of the Ecuadorian oil coming out of the Amazon rainforest is going to the state of California. Least reliable electricity network in the United States. I mean, which of the and double the electricity rates of my home state of Louisiana? Which of these do you want to force on the American people? National Research Council did a very extensive study looking at trucks, trains, barges, ships, and pipelines. Hands down, best for the environment is to put energy in a pipe. It is the safest for the environment, and it's the least emissions. So when the Biden administration shuts down the Keystone Pipeline, under the auspices of, oh, hey, this is because of greenhouse gas emissions, the emissions are lower going through a pipeline. And Jen Psaki the other day acknowledged it didn't have any impact on production. She acknowledged that the energy was just being transported through different ways, which means less safe and higher emissions, directly contradicting what they said their justification was for shutting down the pipeline. You can't. The policies that they're implementing on energy reflect the inexperience and candidly, and I'm sorry for saying this, just flat out stupidity of people that are making these decisions. The facts are completely in the other direction.
You know, if we take the majority, you find out that out of this task force, we could become energy independent. But we can go beyond that. We could be dominant. But what happens there is not only does the price of your gas lower, what the crude goes into all the other products cost less. So your manufacturing is a better chance here. Environment's better. It goes into your task force as well. I mean, and then the provisions there from the taxes and for the schools and others, it just makes us stronger. But then when you look from a worldwide view, it makes the world safer. So I mean, there is real opportunity here, and it's amazing to me that not one Democrat brought up a gasoline price. Not one Democrat. It's not just the leadership, but not one Democrat. So